Well, good morning, everybody. This is the agenda review for Wednesday, February 4th, 2026. Commissioner Beatty's still ill. He's not online, but he is following the meeting this morning. So, Tom?
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commission. A few things this morning, other than agenda review, we'll go through that first, but there's quite a bit of legislative work to talk about as well. So when we're through with agenda review, Tanya and Sam and some others will jump in and talk about some legislative issues. And then I sent you an email. There's a 988 funding issue that we need to talk about too, since we're all together, just to make you aware of some issues regarding some state pass-through money that we need to talk about. So Nicole, on agenda review, any good news for the start of the meeting?
Yes, we do have some county announcements. First off, Excellence in Public Service Award applications are open. Those are due Monday, February 9th. We'll also talk about the I Voted and the Future Voter Sticker Contest. That's going through February 27th. And then also ComCare is hosting a mental health first aid kit class on Friday, February 27th. And that's all I have.
Good. We have one appointment to make on item C. That is for the IDD Advisory Board, Commissioner Beatty's appointment. And then a list of new business. Item D, E, and F are all somewhat related. Item D and F are resolutions declaring some bonding for roads. Item D is roads. Item F is bridges. And then item E is a statement of final costs and assessment. And if there's questions, I'll let Lindsay and or Lynn pipe in here on these three particular items. Anything? No.
These are items we bring before you every year for bonding of projects, as well as the statement of final costs is for 4 different special assessment projects that have finished up.
And just for my help and maybe others, can you recall our bond policy payment, how we do that?
So are you talking about the structure? Or are you talking about debt limits?
I'm sorry.
So I'll talk about both real quick. So we have a very conservative debt policy here. You all adopted changes to it about 2 years ago. And what we do now is we both limit our debt and structure our debt in line with what it requires to maintain a AAA credit rating through S&P. So our entire policy is built around that. So in terms of the structure itself, for most projects, county projects, not special assessments, but these general road and bridge projects, we will structure the debt to be paid over 20 years. In the first 5 years, we will pay off 30% of the principal. And in the first 10 years, we will pay off 60% of the principal. So what you will see is higher debt service costs in the first 10 years, and then much lower costs because there's less principal and therefore less interest to be paid. So that is how our financial forecast is built. Now for special assessments, because there is a comprehensive plan for the community that says we want to drive development into the urban areas where there's already infrastructure, we only do special assessments over 15 years. And that's actually a part of our regulations too. There are times that you all will get complaints about that, but it is tied with a comprehensive plan and the fact that we don't want to grow infrastructure out into the county more than where it already is. So hopefully, does that kind of answer your questions,
Yeah.
Commissioner Meitzner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mainly that we accelerate payment on the front end for 5 years, 10 years, and then we go, which seems to be a good policy from what I've been around.
We get lauded for it by our credit rating agencies every time.
Yeah. Thanks for the clarification on the 15 years, because I thought the city of Wichita had some they were extending to 20. Is that correct?
Yes.
But the county's
Again,
not
that's
doing
because cities,
Yep.
we want it in the cities. We don't want it in the county. So they make it easier for the developers there at cities because that's what the comprehensive plan calls for.
Okay.
And so that's why we try and stick pretty firmly with that 15-year date.
Okay.
Moving on to item G and H are MAPD items you've been briefed on, but just for the public, item G is a conditional use request to allow recreational vehicle campground at 159th East and 63rd Street South. And then item H is a request of a zone change from rural residential to SF20. And that's at 21st Street North and about 263rd Street West. And Scott is here. If there's any questions, I know commission has been briefed. But if there are any other discussion, we'll keep moving. Any questions? Okay. Item I'm going to ask for deferral on this. This was the MAPC appointment that we deferred at the last meeting. The body of the commission would like to reopen that again and take other applicants and then reconsider. So if it's okay, we'd like to, since you voted on it and it would come back to this meeting, I think we have to address the item, but we will be asking for deferral on that item. Okay. Got anything else on that? Good. Okay. Brent will present the quarterly financial report on item J. And then we have a list of bid board items. I'll whip through here, 6 items. Item 1 was tax foreclosure title search services bid. Item 2 was a master control panel install, and Andrew's here if there's questions on that for facilities. Item 3 and 4 are ComCare items. Item 3 is a virtual scribe and quality coach a piece of equipment or software, and it helps them to manage their client services through AI. And then item 4 is a claims management system. It's called an Alpha Collector for ComCare that helps them to properly bill. So those are 2 items for ComCare. Item 5 is an off-duty program for the sheriff to manage his off-duty work schedules for his deputies. And then item 6 was the Panther, the health department's Panther maintenance contract for the Panther analyzer over there, which they use for various analyzations of public health diseases. So those are the bid board items. Under consent, there's only 2 items that were not routine business. L is Lynn establishing maximum speed limits around the county. In the backup material is a list of streets and roads in the county with maximum speed limits attached every year, right, Lynn? Or how do you have to do that?
Every year to 18 months, we do it.
And then item M, Anna Meyerhoff had sent you an email on. This is some policy adoptions mandated, one with non-discrimination in programs and activities, and the other with language access plan that we have to pass. That with the rest of that is plats and regular and routine business. There was a fire agenda too. One was the establishment of budget authority for the Fire District Special Equipment Fund, and this is a vehicle acquisition issue. They had ordered vehicles in fiscal 25. They're coming in, and Chief is here. They're coming in March of 26, and so we're transferring the money to pay for those vehicles that were not budgeted in 26, right? Wrong?
We already transferred the cash. We're just establishing budget authority to spend the cash that's already been transferred.
And then the same policies and procedures that we did on general agenda will be on fire agenda too. So those were the only 2 items on fire agenda. So agenda wise, any questions?
And we will have an executive session on our commission.
That's correct, right, Justin? Yes.
Any questions, Commissioner Arnold?
Just back to the bid board, the off-duty management contract. You verify that that's actually not a cost to the county. It's simply a contract that charges fees and does what it does, but
They
there's
take a
no
percentage.
actual fee to the county at all.
That's
Is that correct?
Yes. They take a percentage. The vendor takes a percentage of whatever the contract.
I'm just curious, why do we need to have a contract with them then? What's our liability or responsibility? Why do we need a contract?
So think about, I mean, I hate to bring it up, but think about Civic Source or think about Purple Wave, where there's some management of our asset or our people. We want to make sure that there's a contract in place to make sure that their data is not shared out, that they have some culpability to us too. So we're getting people in the right place at the right time. So we want to have those contract expectations in place through the county to structure those, even though there's no direct cost to us, they're getting money because of us, because they have access to our people and because they're providing a service. And so we want to make sure that that's done in a fair way, and then that there are some protections for that data.
Does the money for that officer that's off duty, does that flow through the county in any way? Or they pay them directly?
They are paid essentially by the vendor, whoever is contracting.
The money, their salary for that off duty work is not.
Correct. It's not, we don't pay for that, and we don't pay we don't pay labor taxes on that or anything like that. It's just literally a way to schedule those individuals.
If there's a situation that was happened, does the county have any legal liabilities on the performance if they did something that was questioned after the fact?
I'm
Or
gonna
if there-
defer to Justin on that.
if there's a work injury, it's not workman's comp because they're off duty.
It wouldn't be workers' comp, but in terms of, again, these are commissioned officers who are most often being sought after because they are commissioned officers. And so that gets into legal landscape that I'll have to defer to Justin to speak to.
Thanks, Lindsay. And Commissioner Howell, Justin Widener, County Councilor. I think a lot of that would be case by case scenario where you'd have to analyze what's going on. I mean, if there's an argument the county shouldn't be responsible, we're going to zealously advocate against any responsibility or liability to the county on that. But I think it's going to be very fact dependent. I could look into that further if you want.
Might be good just to have a verification. Again, I'm not saying there's a problem. I'd just like to know if our uniformed officer off duty that's been trained by Sedgwick County was to do something that was second guessed by whatever, trial lawyers or whatever,
Sure.
Does that liability in any way come back to the county? Do we have some type of liability because of that? So that's my question.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, and it is a good question, Commissioner. How we can look into that further. Again, I think it's going to depend in part on what's happening and the circumstances of any claims or cases. But we can respond to you and the other
And
commissioners.
I think in my question, if we didn't have this management contract, does that change that situation in some way? Because effectively have a contract, I'm wondering if that creates a liability
I don't
that
think.
may not exist if they were simply just done in the private sector. If you hired somebody off duty and we had nothing to do with it, but they're by commissioned officer, they're allowed to wear a uniform and carry a firearm.
That's a very
That
good.
might still be, allowed them to do that, but we have nothing to do with it at that
A
point.
very good question, Commissioner Howe. I don't think the existence of having somebody help manage that function would be determinative. And I think we would strongly argue against that if somebody tried to make that assertion, but we can look into that as well.
I don't think it would. And it depends on, and Justin's right, it's case by case. It depends on where the deputy shifts into. If he shifts into pure law enforcement mode and he's serving the community as a law enforcement officer and goes into a criminal justice mode, then all of a sudden he's acting on behalf of the county. And then I think if he gets hurt or whatever, then I think we have liability. If he's simply monitoring a dance and not allowing certain people in and out, then I think it gets very interesting. We've had this debate for years about culpability of the government when you're putting off-duty fire, police, or sheriff out there. So
Again, if they're off duty, let's say they're not even working, they're just simply in the community and something happened and they engage the situation. That might be different than this because of this contract. I just wonder if this contract does something that, because we are essentially allowing an employee to do this off-duty work, even though we're not paying for their salary, we're simply we're a party to the contract, I guess.
And I understand your concern, Commissioner Howe. We'll get you and the other commissioners a response before Wednesday so that you can have some more peace of mind if there's a full answer on that. Because I will tell you that I think it's highly unlikely that the existence of the contract would really impact potential liability on that. But I want to give you a better answer.
Do other departments have similar contracts for their officers to do this type of work, or they just do it without the contract?
I know Wichita's done it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of municipalities that have arrangements like this around the country, Commissioner. But I don't think Sedgwick County. You said other departments. I don't think
for
Sedgwick
example,
County
does
has
Derby
any other
Police, if they did
departments like
off-duty
this.
work, do they have to have a contract?
I don't know if Derby
Or
has
if
one.
Clearwater Police wanted to do this,
Sure.
do they have to have a contract? I just wonder.
I think it's more for ease and convenience. I don't think it's a have to, but otherwise you have somebody with pen and paper having
Yeah,
to try and.
if you're staffing a person that will have to manage that.
And we do have contracts, like, for example, EMS has a contract with the arena to provide on, EMS support during big events and things like that. So there are some contracts for that. There's no management
Are
software.
they off duty or are they on duty?
They're on duty.
And they're in the
But
capacity.
we get
of a
to
Sedgwick
bill
County-
back for that cost.
I get that, but they're in the capacity as a Sedgwick County employee.
Correct.
Right. So that's different to me. That's-
Okay. I'm just
Yeah,
trying,
but-
there is another department that has a contract.
You have a law enforcement officer, but this is a legal issue, but if you have a law enforcement officer and he or she is wearing their city uniform or their county uniform and their badge and their gun, and any authority, any action they take is under their commissioned authority as a employee of that department, you're going to carry some level of responsibility, and it's going to be a case by case basis. If they were hired by Smart Security and they're wearing a Smart Security uniform, acting in a totally different capacity, and the sheriff had allowed that's different. But if sheriff or the police chief has said our employees can work off duty and they can wear their uniform, their official police department or sheriff department uniform and badge and gun, and they move into a law enforcement action, whether you have a contractor with somebody who's helping manage the day-to-day, who's going to what job and how much are they getting paid, or whether you got an internal staff, the potential liability is the same either way. Lawyers will do the research. It's always been that way.
Yeah, these are good questions. Let me have the sheriff and Laura Oblinger opine on this a little bit. And then we'll get something to the commission.
It might be good to even look at some case law because I guarantee this has happened at some point.
We're there for a
Yep,
general review?
yep.
Good.
No other questions? Okay, we'll go on to.
Okay, Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. We have some bills flagged by Jason that I just want to bring to your attention. Some of this is going to get explained by some experts, such as our law staff, and I think Lindsay wants to go over a bill that we talked about I think earlier this week. So first bill that I want to bring to your attention is Senate concurrent resolution that was introduced this week. So this is to amend the Constitution relating to property taxation. So this will decrease the assessment percentage used for determining the assessed value of real property used for residential purpose and mobile homes used for residential purposes from 11.5% to 9%. So that popped up and I didn't know about this. So just want to bring that to your attention.
Will you repeat that again, Tony?
Yeah, you bet. So basically it changes the assessed value of real property for residential purposes from 11.5%. Just on residential and mobile homes. Residential also, yes.
So the Constitution right now says 11.5% is the assessment rate. This would change that down to 9%, but without changing commercial, ag, or anything else. So it would simply shift the burden to those other types of properties.
Yeah, that's what I was.
SCR 1619.
Okay.
I've got it here.
And so this is a bill outside of 1616. This is an
Yes.
additional ask.
One that was introduced.
Can I just say this? This has been introduced in previous years. This is a Johnson County senator. This bill is dead on arrival. I can tell you because it requires, again, 84 in the House and 27 in the Senate. It bypasses the governor, goes straight to a ballot. But this is truly a tax increase on every other classification of property. You're absolutely intentionally shifting tax burden from residential to everything else. Western Kansas will never allow this to happen. This has been introduced over and over and over again by Johnson County. And I can tell you this bill's not going to go anywhere.
Okay, next one, and I'll pass these bills down. And you tell me if you want to bring copies of these bills to meetings, and I'm happy to do that. And I can also send this to you too.
Yeah.
I just don't want to overwhelm a lot of paperwork.
Right.
There's a lot going on. Okay, next one is House Bill 2504. Can you tell me? This has a hearing February 5th at 9 a.m. in House Federal and State Affairs. So this is prohibiting cities and counties from restricting the discretion of landlords not to rent residential or commercial property on grounds including prospective tenants' receipt of housing assistance or eviction or criminal history. And permitting cities and counties to prohibit discrimination by landlords on the basis of receipt of better benefits. So just want to bring that attention to your attention because it's for cities and counties. So that bill is getting passed down Okay, this next one, this is about an 8-page bill. There's a hearing on this February 3rd, 9:30, in Senate Assessment and Taxation. And then I think Tom is going to be up here and give his interpretation of the bill. This is requiring the county appraiser to submit a single property appraisal report at the valuation appeal hearing before the regular division of the State Board of Tax Appeals.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thomas Henry, Assistant County Counselor. So currently, and this would be the case moving forward as well, that we do a mass appraisal for all property in Sedgwick County. And then when we go to defend that on appeal, we are using the mass appraisal that was performed to defend that value. What this would require is for someone essentially with the proper licensure, because you can't do a single property tax appraisal without adequate licensure, to come in, do an appraisal specific to that property that is not relying on market data and things like that. And you would have to submit that and use that to defend the value rather than the mass appraisal that we're already doing. There would be costs to the county associated with this, simply because you're going to have to, one, hire somebody with the licensure to do the single property tax appraisal. A lot of the staff that we have can't do that. I know at least one can, but I don't know that there's many more that have the appropriate licensure to do the single property tax appraisal. And then there's just an increased amount of time that is going to have to go to that as well. Aside from the finding somebody with specific qualifications to do it, you'd have to a lot more time and probably more staff to the appeals process as a result of this. So.
Any questions?
Okay, the next one I'm passing around is Senate Bill 404. This is our treasurer's bill. There's no hearing coming up on this. The only thing that I want to bring to your attention is we heard from Johnson County, I think it was yesterday. They would like to put together joint testimony from the big 5 counties. So of course we're included in that, as well as Johnson County, Wyandotte County, Douglas, and Shawnee. So they are going to put something together, and I will pass that along to you all to see if you would like to be part of that joint testimony. So I think we're just in preparation of when that has a hearing. Okay, the next one, I think we're going to hear from Sam on this. This is Senate Bill 124. So this bill reads, imposing unilateral annexation restrictions on cities and expanding the causes of action for landowners to challenge such annexation.
Sam?
Good morning. Samantha Seang, Assistant County Counselors. I'm here to advise on the Senate Bill 124. Next slide, please. Senate Bill number 124 amends Kansas statute annotated 12-520 and 15-538. 12-538. Apologies. There's 4 amendments essentially to the these statutes that would affect currently landowners. Consent is required only for larger unplatted agricultural tracts, so 21 plus acres or more. With this change, landowner consent is only required for will be required for any unplatted tract less than 20 acres. The second restriction would be currently corridor annexations are allowed if they have any tangible value. With this amendment, the cities can no longer annex narrow corridors to gobble up non-contiguous property later on. The third restrictions currently, if land to be annexed is owned by a city or owned by another governmental unit, the city can use that as contiguous for annexation purposes. with these amendments, the cities can no longer claim surrounding city-owned government tracts to annex nearby land they otherwise could have added. The fourth changes to the text would allow landowners a clearer statutory basis to sue for a city if a city tries to annex in violation of these new restrictions. So 4 major changes to these statutes.
Could you help me understand the intent a little bit? Because the first thing that goes into my mind is all these little island areas we have throughout the county that are, surrounded by city property. And I don't know if we ever go to annex those, but I guess I'm trying to better understand the intent of the bill.
The intent of the bill is landowners have been concerned about the cities gobbling up and annexing property by having narrow strips of land. There'll be a chunk of land that is annexed, and then what they do is they buy a little strip of land so that they can argue that it's contiguous or adjacent to the city, and it gives them the ability to annex it into the city. This way, like for example, one of the main complaints was in Edgerton, Kansas, where the property owners were upset because this company had gobbled up a whole bunch of properties and were installing warehouses in that area, and they wanted to be annexed into the city, and they needed a slight sliver of land just to get to the city. And so they would buy that land, and now the farmers are having to deal with warehouses all over their properties surrounding them. So this would prevent that. So it actually just requires more landowners' consent.
And
Instead of being unilaterally without consent, this requires landowners' consent.
Okay. So if it's a piece of property that's like, I'll call it a donut hole, or it's city all the way around it, and it's a major corner intersection that's remained county.
Chairman, I was going to maybe, Sam at the end there was getting to what I was going to mention to supplement, because I think she's right that I think the intent of this bill is to limit the ability for unilateral annexation. I know we had that, I believe it was the city of Andale this past summer, where a property owner is annexed kind of without their consent. And so it makes it to where that would be not really very feasible or able to be done by cities. What you're asking about is more kind of a situation where a property may be surrounded almost entirely by the city, but still be in the unincorporated area. And in that case, this bill would actually make that harder for that land to be annexed. But because the city wouldn't be able to unilaterally annex it. So it's not solving the issue of kind of making that uniform. But I think it would be a situation where that property owner would need to want to be annexed into the city, is how I'm interpreting this bill. And how
what I'm thinking is some of say it's 5-acre corner lots at major intersections that they've went ahead and developed everything around. Everything's been annexed into the city, and then they've left that to wait for commercial development. Commercial development will likely want to be annexed into the city. I'm just trying to understand, is there a remedy to still make that happen if they choose to go that path?
Chairman, if I may, most of the issues we have with county property, deep inside the cities, really aren't any of the 5-acre lots. They are those lots that Sam did address that are 20 acres or more. And by right, by having an unplatted tract, non-developed tract of 20 acres or more, they have the right to refuse annexation. And typically they do, to get out of having to pay city taxes. And those are the lots we have all around the city that are still counting.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, and then the last one is House Bill 2406. This does not have a hearing, and I think Lindsay wants to speak to this further, but this is the tax exemptions for commercial industrial machinery equipment that currently is in a tax exemption.
So we had talked about this, I think earlier this week during staff meeting, and it sounds like there's not really much opposition happening at the state level, but I did want to clarify for you all the impact, because I was guessing at the numbers on Tuesday. So in 2006, the value of equipment when they actually exempted this in Sedgwick County was $368 million. And that had generated 10.6 million in property taxes for us then. Now, by 2023, which is the last tax year, so 2024 budget year, the value was down from that 368 million figure. It was down to 118 million. That's what is still sitting on the books. And that provides 3.4 million in property taxes. So again, not quite $500,000 worth of property tax, but if they were to exempt that, that is 3.4 million is not chump change, even in the scope of our budget. And so while other counties may not oppose it, probably because there's not much sitting on their rolls anymore, it will have an impact to you all. And so I guess I wanted to put that to you and ask if you did want to actually come out and oppose it. Again, no one else is going to be impacted necessarily, but we are. So why is it necessary? So that is why I asked Tanya if I could speak to this today.
That's there's argument, other reasons. I don't know why we wouldn't oppose it just for, at least for the record.
I would appreciate it. That's just one more hurdle on top of all of the other things that you're hearing. You heard conversation earlier about unfunded mandates with that appraiser cost. You're also hearing about the caps and property tax lids and new election costs potentially. I know the election commissioner sent you some of that information the other day. So there's a lot happening at the state level that's going to impact you.
And as the last 3 years, we've made a great effort in trying to reduce the mill levy.
Fairly to
Here's
everyone.
Here's a half a mill levy reduction.
I would agree. I know it doesn't impact others as much as it impacts us because of our industry here, but I think we're getting hit from all sides and we need to be opposing.
I'll just say on that bill, they've already had a hearing, but that doesn't have to stop us from putting together testimony to the committee.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
That's all I have.
That it? All right.
That would shift to the last, I want to make the commission aware, and I sent you an email earlier that we have a history with 988 of funding it, and a lot of that is funded through federal and state pass-through grant dollars coming to us. We found out Monday of this week, or just this week, that the funding that was going to cover the costs from September 29th to February 1st did not come through. We have petitioned the state to change that. They will not. Administratively, they cannot change it. So what we have done, and these are FTEs, basically 3 or 4, I think, and Michelle Stroud is here as well as Lindsay. We fund FTEs with that, and we have been paying them out of CCBHC revenue fund. So I don't know that there's anything we can do about it. The 988 system is valuable. I don't think the commission wants to bring the 988 system down, but I wanted you to know that we are paying for it and the state did not come through with a grant on that. So just if the commission's satisfied with CCBHC revenue fund paying for that, then no action needed. If you want to fund that in another way, then we'd have to take an action. The commission would have to take an action. So anything else, Lindsay or Michelle, that maybe I misstated? Okay.
Guess the only thing I would add is it's about $100,000, just so you know what the fiscal impact was.
Anything else? Everybody, Wednesday morning, February 4th at 9 a.m. Have a good weekend.